Hello and welcome to Allegedly Astrology. Each week we break down the astrology that happened during some of the biggest scandals and events in history.
Thanks so much to everyone for listening to our show. And if you want to support us, you can leave us a 5-star review and subscribe on whatever podcast platform you listen on.
And if you do leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify and DM us a screenshot of your review, we'll make you a custom meme of your big three and send you a quick write-up about it.
We also have a very cool and exclusive Patreon, so if you want more awesome astrology content, join us at patreon.com/allegedlyastrology.
And make sure to follow us at Allegedly Astrology on Instagram, TikTok, YouTube, and Allegedly Astro on Twitter/X.
And you can visit our website, allegedlyastrology.com, to learn more about us and the show. And if you want to book a reading with me, you can email astrologyreadingsbydana@gmail.com, which will be linked in the show notes.
Sure will. So Dana, what are we talking about today?
Part 2 of Frankenstein.
Yes. And last week in part 1, we covered Mary Shelley, who is the author of Frankenstein, and the origins of how that story came to be. Mary Shelley is also super interesting. I feel like we barely scratched the surface on her, so definitely go back, listen to part 1, and Google more about Mary Shelley because she's pretty cool. But this week, we'll be covering Frankenstein in pop culture, specifically in movies. And even though Frankenstein was originally published in 1818, its first time on the big screen happened in 1910. Probably because there weren't any big screens until then, right?
Yeah, I think 1910 was like the first big screen.
Right. I don't know. We don't really have any,
I actually took a lot of film classes.
But it has to be,
Yeah, okay, yeah. 1910 was about the first time they had a big screen, they were like, we're putting Frankenstein up there.
Exactly. So it had existed in people's minds for almost 100 years. And it was first released as a silent 16-minute short film. Obviously, they didn't even have talkies then. Critics that loved it said the monster creation scene was one of the most remarkable to ever be committed to a film. And then the haters said you shouldn't show death on screen. But again,
losers.
So
that was when they were still like eating graham crackers because they thought it would stop people from masturbating.
Yeah, I mean, they'd clutch their pearls to see what we're up to now. But a few decades go by.
So do I.
I mean, who am I to judge? A few decades go by and Universal Studios, who was in need of money at the time, released Dracula, and it was super successful, and they were like, okay, we need to make more horror movies. And so they decided to make Frankenstein, which obviously was based off of Mary's novel, and it would be the first sound adaptation of the story, talkies. It would be considered by film historians as the most prominent portrayal of Frankenstein. So what was going on when the Universal Studios version was released?
So this was November 21st, 1931, and the sun was in Scorpio and the moon was in Aries. So it's very Martian. Here we are. We're taking action. And Mars, Mercury, and Venus are all conjunct in Sagittarius within 1 degree, which is fascinating. Especially because Sagittarius is so much about like curiosity, fantasy in a way. It's Jupiter ruled. We have a lovely fire trine, which is also about passion, very much sort of like the energy of like, we're going to make a monster and then carrying it out,
Yeah.
So we have the moon in Aries with Uranus and the North Node, and then there's Jupiter in Leo, and then again that Sagittarius trine. So it's all about passion. It's all about fire. It's like firing up a kiln and making a monster. And then what I think is pretty interesting is that we have Saturn in Capricorn opposite Pluto in Cancer. So it's sort of the opposite of what we had in 2020, I guess, when we all became monster, or we all became sort of Frankensteins, because now we all have long COVID. More on that developing conspiracy, that really stretch of a theory.
We're all monsters.
We're all monsters now. But it's also important to compare this to Mary Shelley's chart. So Pluto in Cancer was transiting her first house. So this is, again, really keeping her in the zeitgeist, putting her in more of a power position. Sagittarius, that triple conjunction of Mercury, Venus, and Mars is all conjunct her natal south node, triggering a fated event. The south node, transiting south node in Libra, is conjunct her natal Venus. So we have dual south node, dual fated, dual eclipse energy in her chart. And Neptune is conjunct her natal sun, which again is making her famous. Neptune transits can make you famous, or just Neptune in general makes people famous. Marilyn Monroe had a first house Neptune. There's a lot of
Right. I mean, this was Frankenstein was also like, I'm sure this was a lot of people's first foray into like looking into the book or, because it had been released almost it was what, over 100 years before that.
right.
So
Good point.
it like bringing her back also
Yeah,
into
yeah, yeah. The Zeit.
the Zeit.
And also now, like Neptune in Virgo, Neptune being so much about fantasy, Virgo being the sign of the physician, Dr. Frankenstein making a monster. Also, it's interesting, I guess, Neptune, the sun has so much to do with names. And like people call the monster Frankenstein, but actually that's the doctor's name.
It's so funny. The monster is actually just the monster.
Yeah. The monster.
The monster. But I also feel like this is really interesting because this was right at the beginning of the sort of like Germans being evil.
Yes. Which we also did an episode on that. Feel free to look at our Hitler episode.
Yes. And so like this was like released right then. So it's sort of people are like, oh yes. And I bet a lot of people here
It's a
listening
really
being
good
like,
point.
wait, the monster's not named Frankenstein?
No.
No, it's not.
No, it's not. It's named the monster. And also transiting Uranus, so much about science fiction and surprises is conjunct her natal Jupiter in her 10th house of career. So people were like, wow, how did a 19-year-old woman write this? Or
I
like
mean,
maybe it's
I'm
a
still
prize that it's
thinking
a
that.
woman, I mean, yes, for sure. When I was
I'm
19,
still thinking that.
we were like, I don't know, using our fake IDs at the holiday club. Um,
Early.
and then also looking at this overlaid with her progressions. In her progress chart, she had a Moon Mars conjunction in Scorpio, and the transiting sun was conjunct that, and it's in her fifth house of creations. So this is pretty cool. This again is like the fifth house is the idea for the book, right? This is a book that she wrote for herself, and it's sort of really putting it out there and shining the light on that. Like now it's sort of, I mean, she's long dead, but it's progressed to this point where people are seeing her creations in a new light, the sun. Transiting Saturn was conjunct her progressed sun in Capricorn, Saturn being all about what puts people like, it's like legacy, it's commitment. So this is really marking her. Maybe the movie did more for, I don't know. I mean, I guess I really think that we look to movies to understand our reality, you know?
Mm,
Like I
yeah.
really think that the ideas that we have of culture all started in like 1930 or 1920, like when movies came out. And again, I know I'm not exactly right, but there are a lot of things about this. Your eyes. Do you know what I mean, though?
Yeah, I do know what you mean. I know what
Um,
you're talking about.
like, so, I mean, Saturn on the sun, it's really putting her again, sun being her star, her spotlight, like, and in the seventh house, it's giving people a new way to interact with her. So she's sort of embedded in culture more than she maybe even was before. I don't know. I don't remember my life when I was here in 1930, assuming I
I
was
wish I
here.
did. Yeah, where were we in 1930?
I've recently started learning about Aleister Crowley, and I've decided it's possible I was him, but I don't think I was. I don't think I'm
Interesting.
yeah, we have the same lot of fortune.
It was part of the Holocaust. I just don't know what part.
Yeah, I know you've always thought that, so that's definitely true.
Yeah,
We should maybe do past life readings.
we should.
We should get people to do it for us on the show.
Does anyone want to do a past life reading for us? If you do, message us and we'll do a live reading on the show.
We would love to
We would love to.
expose me. So then the Sagittarius pileup, we're now comparing this to the day the book was initially published, even though it wasn't under her name, it's still the birth chart of the book. It's January 1st, 1818 in London. And when she published the book, again, just a reminder, we had Venus, Jupiter, Uranus, and Neptune all conjunct in Sagittarius. And so the Sagittarius stellium from the day the movie first came out, which is Mars, Mercury, and Venus all conjunct in Sagittarius, and they're closely conjunct where Uranus was on the day that the book was initially published. It's really interesting to put Sagittarius sort of in this new perspective. Sagittarius is the second house from Scorpio, so it's sort of like what is in Scorpio's toolbox? What are the resources Scorpio has? If you think of Scorpio as like the spooky sign, which I mean we do because that's when Halloween is. So it's not an unearned stereotype. And also Saturn, again being the planet of commitment, is where the Sun and Mercury was when the book was initially published. And then we have again a South Node dual activation with the luminary. So transiting South Node is in Libra, where the Moon was when the book was published, and the initial publication of the book had the South Node in Scorpio, which is where the sun was when the movie came out. So there's South Node activation both in Mary's chart and
Mm.
in the book, like the publication chart as with the movie, which I think is fascinating. Again, I think it's possible. I think a lot of what is out there about the nodes, like all of it's valuable to learn and like, but I think you should really look at your own experiences with it. Like
Can you just describe a little bit more of the difference between the South Node and the North Node?
kind of like, so the more I learn about it, the more I'm less sure that like, okay, for so I'll get into the structure of it. The north node of the dragon is the head of the dragon. The south node of the dragon is the tail. So the north node is what is being consumed, and the south node is what is being dumped, so to speak.
Mm,
It's been digested. It's sort of a part of your body already, right? Like it's in your once you digest something, it becomes a part of you. And the north node is like what you're eating, what you might be both fascinated by and all like it's intrigue. So you're intrigued by it, but maybe you're afraid of it as well a little bit, or hesitant,
mhm.
or don't feel prepared. But in terms of like transits, like these two South Node, I mean, they're both evoking the past, right? With this movie,
Right.
which could be the simplest explanation. But I also sometimes feel like the nodes, just like eclipses, they sort of constantly surprise me in terms of what is fated. So I just baseline say it's fated. Do you know what I mean?
Right. Right. But it's sort of like
Kind of comfort versus
some
intrigue could be
right.
if
Yeah.
you're thinking about it in your life. Like, I don't really think it's what you're supposed like, your past life and your next life. I don't think that's irrelevant either, but I think to
Right.
exclusively frame it like that is limiting.
I feel like the South Node is more what you're meant to grow away from, and the North Node could be like the direction you're going. I don't know. I do feel like a lot of what Frankenstein there's a lot of messages in it, and it's a little bit of like a cautionary tale.
Right.
And that does feel a little South Node to me.
Oh,
Like,
sure.
that all the things are there for you to learn from this, but you still have to do that. You still have to do the learning and the growing.
I like that. If people are
So,
curious about nodes, I really like Saturn and Honey on Twitter has a lot of good tweets about how you're supposed to balance like your life. If you just chase the north, you're out of balance. Like balancing them is the
yes,
best.
exactly.
Yeah. Which just makes sense if you're just worried about consumption versus
Exactly. You
versus the
gotta
digestion.
release.
Yeah, the balance
Yeah.
of the digestion.
Yeah. All right. So, how was Frankenstein the talkie version? I'm just going to try to
Tolkien,
say
I like that.
talkie
I
as
think it's
much as I
cute.
can in this episode. But initially, film critics were really into it. They said it made Dracula, which people were like at first, like, oh my God, like it looked really tame. Others said that they thought the concept of the monster was good, but the rest of the production wasn't so great. But over the years, Frankenstein has continued to receive acclaim from critics and is widely regarded as one of the greatest movies of all time.
Wow.
It was even selected for preservation in the US National Film Registry, and in 2004, the New York Times placed the film on its best 1,000 movies ever
That's a pretty
list.
broad list.
So, yeah, I mean, 1,000 movies, but still,
Yeah,
again,
no,
there had been a lot of movies that came out
good
since
point.
then. So, but over the decade, the monster, or the name Frankenstein, which people incorrectly interchange, has inspired tons of other movies, spoofs, comics, TV shows. It's been referenced in cartoons and you name it. It spawned sequels like The Bride of Frankenstein. And Frankenstein is currently back in culture thanks to Guillermo del Toro's adaptation that's coming out. Maggie Gyllenhaal also has an adaptation coming out called The Bride. So lots of sequels and originals and remakes. But Guillermo del Toro, he's pretty interesting. He's a Mexican filmmaker, author, and artist, and he's really known for his work in horror fiction and fairy tales. And he's directed films like Pan's Labyrinth, Shape of Water, Hellboy, Nightmare Alley. So, what in Guillermo del Toro's chart might show his love of horror?
Horror. So
Horror.
so he was born October 9th, 1964 in Guadalajara, Mexico, and we don't know what time he was born. So it's just a solar chart for noon, but we do know that he has a Libra sun and either a Scorpio or Sagittarius moon. So
Ooh, I wonder which one.
I know. The moon entered Sagittarius at 5:02 local time in Guadalajara. So
AM?
yeah.
So he'd have to be born real early in the morning.
which is possible.
Very possible. I was born at 1:53 a.m.
Yeah, Sarah was also born in the 1 o'clock hour.
Hmm.
I was born at 10:44, which is actually, I don't want people to know when I was born.
Even though they know your rising sign.
That's a good point. I was born at 10:44 and 5:22, which is 5:22 times 2.
Wow.
I know, and I'm a Gemini, so the 2 really comes in here.
Really does.
Just love telling people. Okay. So,
We'll see. I'm thinking he's a Scorpio moon, but
that's
who
what I said,
knows?
and I think it's also, I mean, like, even to answer the question, like, what makes him so interested in scary stuff? Well, if his moon is in Scorpio squaring his Saturn in Aquarius and the final degrees, his Saturn's at 28 degrees, that's so spooky, especially in Scorpio and Aquarius, like, both of
Mhm.
Aquarius is so much about science fiction, and Aquarius too, like, is a sign that I think seems crazy because they're often sort of like
Extraterrestrial?
I mean, I get why they get the yeah, I don't know.
I guess
Extraterrestrial?
for me, I feel like I see Aquarius has their own brand of weird. It's not necessarily,
Beautifully said.
but I, I feel like I can see the Scorpio Aquarius square situation being like horror, but with a broader message for humanity,
Oh, I love that.
which is kind of, I feel like what Guillermo del Toro's, I haven't watched all of his films, but I do kind of feel like there is like this broader message. It's not just meant to like be gory and scary.
Yeah, I haven't watched, like, really any of his films, but I did dip into his Netflix series, and that was
The
what it was.
Pinocchio?
No, he must have several. It was, like, just, like, little it was, like, vignettes, basically, or like,
Oh,
just different stories.
interesting.
I forgot what it's called.
Yeah, he did like a big Pinocchio thing at the MoMA, I think.
Oh, cool.
And then I think it was on, I don't know if it was on Netflix or what, and he kind of made it a little scary. Like,
I mean,
Pinocchio is like this cutesy story that, like, maybe Disney or whoever adapted, but like it was actually a little bit scary. Like, this wooden creature, like,
I'm a real
was
boy.
kind of, yeah, like, he kind of made it scary, but again, a broader message about what happens when
That's
you
so interesting.
lie
Oh, I kind of wanna watch that.
and what happens when you live in your delusions.
Oh, but it's so fun to do that sometimes. Pinocchio's just out there having fun. A Little Mermaid, I guess, is also originally terrifying.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll read that book.
Ursula,
I guess, like,
she's
the
scary.
ending is that I think Little Mermaid gets nothing. She does not get a fairy tale ending.
Yeah.
So let's talk more about this chart. He also has Mars and Leo opposite Saturn and Aquarius, and so this is like Mars and Leo is like the creation, right? He's like acting towards creation, but like you said, that this also really fits what you just said because the Saturn in Aquarius is ultimately like, but there's a message here. There's like a greater application. It's not just about the individual of or like the star of the story. It's like it's about all of us,
Mhm.
which is so easy. I think I don't know if this is what I learned or like it's just so easy to be like I'm not the monster, when especially when you're
Right.
like growing up. But like we're all the monster, I don't
We're
know,
all the monster.
all the monster. I also just watched a movie which is insane called I'm gonna send it to you. The Sleepaway Camp.
Yes, we almost watched it last night.
I would say it's more shocking than scary. But again, I'd close my eyes every time there's like an injury. I'm like, I'm willing to see
Mhm.
what that looks like. Anyway, okay. Also, Libras aren't scary, but they can tolerate fear a lot better than most. I think I said that last episode. I don't know why. I mean, let's say we can break it down into something very superficial, which is they're the only sign in the zodiac represented by an inanimate object, which a lot of people I think use to dehumanize the sign, which makes sense because it's where the sun is in fall. So it does make sense that that would happen. I'm trying not to talk about as much about the dignity scene because I think it's limiting, but
Mhm.
really, I mean, these signs still have things to deal with. The sun in Libra, actually, it's also where Aleister Crowley had his son. But I think like being
I
able to
can see
balance
that though.
reality with like my mom,
Yes.
again, a Libra, she's always like, "It's just a movie." She knows what's fake.
Right.
Also
And yeah, I feel like they don't like actively seek out horror movies or anything, but if they're watching them, they're like, it's not that big of a deal.
it's not.
You know
Like
what I mean?
and Britney Spears, famous Libra rising, the clip that's circulating from her now is someone, like a reporter asking her if Justin Timberlake was jealous about watching her make out with, like, another guy on screen, and she's like, "It's just pretend. You should know that you're an adult."
Oh my god, I bet.
Yeah, it's a good one. Also, maybe we can learn a lot about the second house in this one too, because the second house of Libra is Scorpio, so maybe they have spooky things in their toolbox, like, where they have,
Hmm.
a little mystery here. And then he also has Chiron and Pisces opposite Pluto and Virgo. So, like, everyone who was born in, like, the second half of the 19th or the 20th century has, like, Uranus opposite Chiron, but Chiron opposite Pluto is less common. And I think this could be also maybe indicative of coming like, the wounds that are resulting from power, you know? I don't know. And sort of really being able to put it in, like, a spiritual, moral type of right, like, he's presenting these, like, fantasy movies, Pisces, Chiron and Pisces, but Pluto and Virgo's like, what about the morals here?
Right. Well, let's talk about the new Frankenstein. So, this Guillermo del Toro adaptation stars Oscar Isaac as Victor Frankenstein and Jacob Elordi as the creature. Ooh, finally we're gonna get to see Jacob Elordi if he was ugly.
I doubt that they're probably gonna make him a hot
I know,
monster.
he'll still be
It's so
hot.
modern to
Yeah,
make
he'll
a
be a
hot
hot monster.
monster.
God, of
It's so
course it
modern to be a
is.
hot monster.
A hot monster. But it premiered at the Venice Film Festival to generally positive reviews,
How long
and
was the standing ovation? Do we know? We don't.
I think let's see, how long was standing ovation of Frankenstein movie? 13 minutes.
That's so long.
I know,
I
that's
think
honestly,
since
like
since we all learned about that from, like, whatever movie we did, like, 3 years ago, I think they're probably they're just conscious about it now, right? Whatever.
yeah, you know.
All over the
Anyway,
place today.
I think it's in limited theatrical release now, but it will officially release on Netflix on November 7th. So, Dana, what's its chart like when it will release to the Gen Pop?
Gen Pop. So, on November 7th, I put it for 3 AM in New York because that's when movies drop, like, the time just so I could get the exact moon. And so the sun's in Scorpio, the moon is in Gemini, the 2 most maligned and victimized signs of the zodiac, JK.
Mhm.
Just tricksters doing tricks. And
Trickster's doing tricks,
it's a
Scorpio and Gemini.
it's right after the full moon in Taurus, which I love. It's sort of like a culmination in Taurus, but then when we move into Gemini, away from sort of like the security of a monster being secure, it's into like the ideas of what this implies. Especially with Uranus there, because Uranus, again, it's like at the very final, it's 0 degrees and 1 minute. It's about to move back to Taurus, but it's still in Gemini. So again, the moon with Uranus is like it's evoking, I think, probably modern fears, maybe it's doing or doing it in a new way. I don't know. I haven't seen the movie. I'm interested to, though. So, yeah, we're at the final sign of the zodiac. It's very spiritual. It's bringing, like, I think it's interesting to look at it maybe through a spiritual lens as opposed to just like a science fiction lens. And then there's a water trine, which will be there through most of Scorpio season. So we have the sun in Scorpio. Venus also joins at 0 degrees. We have Saturn and Neptune in Pisces, and we have Jupiter in Cancer. So this is really it's emotional, it's sort of like intuitive. It could maybe prey on fears. Also, it could be like I mean, water signs can sometimes be homebodies, so it's sort of like what happens when you're home. I don't know. Hitting close to home. And then if we look at this outside of the chart of the original book release, the moon is in Gemini, conjunct Mars retrograde in the first edition of the book. So again, it's really getting to sort of like the original, like it's a very close conjunction. It's getting to the original sort of like heart of this book in terms of like what happens when like ideas go into action sort of thing.
Mm.
So I don't know, maybe we can all get mad at Sam Altman, who I don't like. The sun is in Scorpio, conjunct the South Node of the first edition. Again, we're getting some cool South Node stuff, just, bringing it back from the past. And then Saturn and Neptune are conjunct Pluto from the first edition. And so this is bringing back like the power aspects of it all. Like what happens
Mm.
when, if Pisces being a sign at the end of the zodiac, we've reached the end of the road. It's about the spirituality and transcendence that you get from like the end of a journey. We all remember when Jupiter was in Pisces in like 2022, and we all thought, well, not we.
What did we all remember about that
It was sort of like the healing from the pandemic.
from
It wasn't
COVID?
about
Yeah.
like we're all going back to like, it wasn't like going back to the old world. It was making peace with the new one.
Yeah.
And so with Pluto there, I think it's really also Pluto, I think a good way to apply it to like regular life is that it's going to force a decision. because Pluto is so much to do with people who are massively in power, and what is one thing that all people who are massively in power share? It's the responsibility of making decisions for large swaths of people. And then also with Pluto in Pisces, I think it's like engineering maybe things that are spiritual, previously were spiritual, maybe. I mean, it's playing God. Maybe that's what it is, right?
Mm,
That's what
yeah,
I'm
and that's
basically
what
getting
Victor
at.
Frankenstein is doing.
Yeah, Victor. Playing God so much that like the monster gets his name. Interesting.
Oh, wow.
um, and then the North Node is conjunct Chiron from the first edition, really again evoking that like the pain, the original wound of like being, brought into this world without asking for it, I assume,
Right.
and having to deal with like, I guess also once again, this book that I haven't read, but I did listen to a podcast yesterday about The Bride of Frankenstein, which sort of brought up the original movie from like the 30s.
Mhm.
Which brought up, original themes too. And then looking at this around the chart of the original film release, which again was November 21st, 1931. It's the solar return and the Mars return of the movie and the Mercury return. So Sagittarius is moralizing. So you get these moralizing messages, and then Sun in Scorpio is like the trauma. What's that thing that Oppenheimer said, like, quoting the about Vita, I am become death or something? That's sort of, I think, maybe some Scorpio. And then Jupiter is conjunct Pluto, where Pluto was in the original release. So again, we're sort of, and it's in Cancer. Maybe we should all ask ourselves what happens to people who are motherless. I mean, I'm not putting that on mothers. I'm putting it on how men act like they're motherless. Maybe women do too.
Mm. Well, Mary Shelley was motherless.
Oh, excellent point. Flip it, reverse it.
Bang down,
Boom,
flip
boom,
it, and
boom.
reverse
Boom,
it.
boom, boom, boom. Are people so annoyed? Okay. And so,
Sorry, everyone.
no. Also fascinating in Mary Shelley's progress chart, there's a new moon in Aries in her 10th house. So again, really bringing her back to bringing her star back. And also something that I think is interesting is that transiting Chiron is right on the where her progressed new moon is in Aries. And so, I mean, that could even reflect me or us talking about her in a different light maybe, or talking about the monster she created. It's just sort of all these things that maybe she thought of that maybe no one else had thought of before. Aries, the first sign of the zodiac, which I think is cool and clever. The North Node is conjunct her progressed Venus in her 9th house, which is the house of God and moralizing and philosophy. So again, we're sort of putting this philosophy into a new modern perspective, which is cool.
All right. So there is one more Frankenstein film coming out that we referenced. It's called The Bride, and it's an upcoming film written, directed, and produced by Maggie Gyllenhaal, starring Jessie Buckley, Christian Bale, her husband Peter Sarsgaard, her brother Jake Gyllenhaal, Annette Bening, and Penelope Cruz. What a cast!
What a cast.
And yes, this film draws inspiration from the 1935 film, which is a sequel of Frankenstein, The Bride of Frankenstein. So it's interesting that, like, again, there's like a sequel, even though these two films are not necessarily directed by the same person or whatever. It's coming out, so people are going to view this as a sequel,
Right.
whether or
Well,
not
The
that was
Bride of
always the
Frankenstein had nothing
intention.
to do with Mary Shelley.
I know, but it will. People are
So it's
always
sort of
going. You know what I
right.
mean?
No, for sure, for
It's just
sure. I'm
always
just
going to be
saying, yeah,
associated.
it's
But
interesting.
anyway, what's going on when the Bride will premiere next
And
year?
first of all, I learned that The Bride of Frankenstein had nothing to do with Mary Shelley yesterday when I listened to that podcast. So March 6th, 2026, and we have the sun in Pisces and the moon in Libra. It's 3 days after a lunar eclipse in Virgo. Again, the sign where Mary Shelley has her sun. It's a south node eclipse. So again, it's evoking the south node. But with the moon in Libra there, we're also calling back to the date that the book was originally published and the date that the book was published with her name on it. So the moon in Libra really does have so much to do with sort of, and again, it's framing a woman. So maybe, yeah, maybe that has something, it'll be, I don't know. Who's in it?
What do you mean? I just listed everyone that was in it.
Oh, okay. My memories. I just didn't eat yet today. It's only
Jessie
11.
Buckley, Christian Bale, Peter Sarsgaard, Annette Bening, Jake Gyllenhaal, and Penelope Cruz.
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you for
Jessie
helping me.
Buckley is the Bride of Frankenstein, and
I don't know
Christian
who
Bale,
Jessie
I
Buckley
believe.
is.
Yes, you do. She's in a lot of horror stuff.
Oh,
I think
cool.
it's kind of like her specialty.
I love Christian Bale. He's such a freak.
I guess, Dana, throughout all of these charts, you kind of walked us through why we're seeing a lot of Frankenstein back in movies and pop culture. So let's recap. Give us like some of the key reasons why we're seeing Frankenstein pop up now.
Well, simply, I would say it's the Saturn return of the book. So the book came out
Okay.
January 1st, 1818. Saturn was at 2 degrees Pisces. Saturn's back in Pisces right now. It's also where the North Node is with the eclipses. So it's hitting also where Chiron and Pluto were when the book was published, all in Pisces. So it's really bringing us to like, I think it's what happens when people think about the end, maybe. Like, what is the
Hmm.
beginning, kind of, right? Like, what do you create? It's about creation at the end of the world. I don't know. It's making me think a lot about the astrology of Pisces in general.
I mean, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. When I think of Pisces, it's like you're reflecting on everything that happened and like kind of like a lot of the dark themes to get there. And like, how can we as humanity
Yeah.
fix some of this before we like enter into a new
Like,
cycle?
we have to take responsibility for what we create.
Exactly.
And like, that's really what I like, especially because in next year we get the exact conjunction of Saturn and Neptune at 0 degrees Aries. So it's a new beginning.
Shit.
It's Saturn, it's permanent, it's Neptune, it's divine. So it's sort of like, you know? I mean,
Yeah, the world will never be the same.
that was my sigh.
Mm. I know.
But also what I
I
think is
feel
interesting
us
is that
right
there's so
now.
much Jupiter throughout this. We think of Jupiter as this like benevolent force. I mean, it's a benefic. It is a benevolent force, but it's also like, where can you bring grace to all this? We have Jupiter in Cancer through next summer, or through next spring. So Jupiter in Cancer brings a different kind of grace, a different lens to it. It's watery, it's maternal again. We need sort of sometimes you need to be your own mother. Think about that.
Interesting.
Two things that are also very important when we look at Mary Shelley's chart is that Jupiter is transiting Cancer, which again is her rising sign, where she also has Saturn. Again, her rising sign conjunct Saturn really puts her as like she's eternally here, right? It's really made her commitment over time. Like she's always been. She started young, but Jupiter in Cancer, I think, is giving a new appreciation for her, with Jupiter having so much to do with appreciation. And her Pluto being at the final sign of, or the final degree of Aquarius, conjunct her natal midheaven, which again is in her 8th house of death. It's finally the Pluto return of Mary Shelley. So we've begun the Pluto return of Mary Shelley. Maybe she'll be a theme for longer than we think, which again, Pluto is in Aquarius through 2043. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, this is really fascinating
Interesting.
stuff.
Yeah. All right. Well, for our Patreon special episode, we're going to take a look at Maggie Gyllenhaal's chart, compare her synastry to Mary Shelley, and kind of see why she was drawn to this sort of story. Even though we will acknowledge The Bride of Frankenstein is not Mary Shelley, I think it's all kind of related. So
For sure.
we're going to take a look.
100% for sure.
All right. Thank you guys so much for listening to this episode. I'm Elise.
I'm Dana.
And this is Allegedly Astrology.
Bye.
Bye.
Fun.